man looks into space and does not regard the small as too little, nor the great as too big, for he knows there is no limit to dimensions. Bamboo is an ancient type of material that's been used by mankind for many ages. It's helped man. Philosophically, it has a relationship that shows it bending in the wind like mankind has. So I was taking the philosophical aspect and adding other things to it that was pleasing. I can put large-scale sculpture pieces in places that does not normally have large-scale sculpture. They are mobile. The mobility of these pieces is representative of the mobility of the contemporary man. Many times people have moved 5 or 6 times in a year. We get in a car, so we are a mobile society. My sculpture pieces are of a monumental scale and size, but they break down and they can be carried to somewhere else.
When I talked to the dancers about it, they were very excited about the idea. And I had never done an all-men's piece, so I decided on that factor too. And I have always kind of joked about this, that I had wonderful dancers who were dying to be on stage, to be upstaged by Tom Grubb's sculptures. But now that it's all come together, we find that it's a wonderful balance, and they're just blending beautifully, and the dimensions of time and space are for his kinetic sculptures as well as for my dancers.
One of the important aspects I deal with in my art is interaction with the community or finding a raw material. When I have to go out and find bamboo, I have found spots all the way from Richmond, Virginia, through to the South Carolina border. But when you find a spot, I usually have to interact with the landowner. The bamboo in this particular grove, some of it grows to a height of 50, sometimes even 55, 60 feet. That's very unusual for this area of the world. When I come to the bamboo patches, I have an idea of what space I want to explore, but after I cut the pieces and I get a feel of what I have, then I can better design the piece.
The dancers, who are all students here at East Carolina, had been rehearsing with me in the studio for about 3 weeks before I felt comfortable enough to invite Tom in to see what we were doing. I didn't want him to see us through that period when we're struggling for the next step, because I certainly didn't want him to be discouraged about doing this piece with me, which is so dear to my heart.
The bamboo is located in a place that allows me freedom of movement to construct my piece there in a meadow real close by. In this meadow, I trim up the bamboo and get it into linear elements. And through movements of these linear elements, once that I have cut all the limbs off the bamboo, it reminds me, and I deal with them similar to an artist deals with line on a two-dimensional surface, except I deal with it in a three-dimensional way.
This is a very exciting project for me because Tom and I both deal with time and space in our arts. Also, I've noticed Tom's pieces don't stay up for very long, and it is ephemeral, just as dance is an ephemeral art. And so that's another bond that we've shared in this project.
During the past year, I had thought of performance in relation to my sculptures. The total aspect of me going to get the bamboo, binding them up into bundles and carrying them to an area where the piece is actually constructed, all of this takes on aspects of a performance. So the performance aspect, even though it had been on my mind, I had not considered dance until Pat approached me. The interaction of sculpture, dance, stage, the lighting system offered me a challenge and opportunity that I had to accept.
The dancers were very curious about what we were going to do on the stage once the sculpture got up there, because I did indicate to them that there were certain areas on the stage that they could not go to because there would be sculpture there, and also that there would be sculpture overhead. And we had movements in the dance where the dancers arched skyward, and it was one thing to do that in the studio, and then quite another experience when they were on stage and they arched, and there was Tom's magnificent piece floating above them. So suddenly the dancers said to me, it's as if we exist, another 12 feet further up now that there's that piece to relate to. And then at the end, when we had all the dancers coming in and they were bringing in Tom's ropes so that we were completely fracturing the space that we had started with, that was another element that was a grand collaboration.
Well, at first I really didn't understand what the sculpture was going to be like. When she said we were going to be working with a sculptor, I didn't know whether the dancers themselves would be moving the sculpture or exactly how it would work. And then Pat came and told us that mainly it was just to define the space that we were dancing in, and then, we would be bringing on the ropes to define the space also. So it's been real exciting.
The sculptures that I put outside never had a device that I could suspend them from the air, that they were all planted on the ground. Dealing with the dancers and mechanism so I could suspend it, I felt that it would give it a lighter feel, and that the dancers would interact with the piece similar to the spectators would outside moving in and out of the sculpture.
I actually started thinking about Tom's pieces in relationship to dance when they were on the university lawn across the street from my house. I was drawn to move around in the environment that Tom's pieces created, and that environment inspired me to want to go further in creating movement in conjunction with Tom's sculpture.
thing about it, coming onto a stage setting like this with my sculpture pieces, I was dealing with time and space inside the way I dealt with time and space outside. So with Pat and myself, she deals with time and space with the dancers. I deal in time and space on a more cosmic level of venture. People interact with my outdoor pieces in a manner that is not choreographed, but the way I construct pieces, you can almost plan how people interact with them, how they go through them and how they walk around them and look into them. What Pat has done and what we've tried to put together here is a piece where the dancers are representative of or can take on aspects of the human being coming up to the sculpture. But she's dealing with the time and space involved in their interaction with the sculpture.
The whole idea is that dance has to exist in that present moment. And if you look where you're going to go, then you see you're already dancing in the future. And you have to give each moment its full value. So that's the whole point of not telegraphing where you're going to go next. Good run, good run. I'm not so sure about sharpening some of the arms on the 14 count thing. Can we do it one more time? Okay, one more time.
I know. The problem involved of activating the space that I have on this stage, I had to have considerable backstage help from a crew. When the curtain falls, we have limited amount of time to get all the sculptures off the stage. This in and of itself was a limit in my design. And near the end of the performance, the dancers interact with the sculpture by bringing ropes across. When they bring ropes across, this touches the dancers and the sculpture and they become one, and they start fracturing the space of the stage with cross diagonals.
Well, I think it's a wonderful thing to do because of the collaboration with the dance people and the people from the art department. And we're going to try to do more and more of this sort of thing. We've already started to collaborate with the people in the School of Music, and we're bringing them in to compose new pieces. For this particular concert, we have someone who's doing a piece on a Moog synthesizer. And of course, this piece that we're talking about today is being done with Tom Grubb, who's an MFA candidate in sculpture. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about the arts at East Carolina, is because we're all starting to collaborate and put it all together.
As a sculptor, I had in the past just dealt with form and shape and color. Working on this collaboration with Pat, with dance and light and the stage, I found that using all these many different elements, that one could develop an image and an art form that would have a great deal of impact.
As a choreographer, I've collaborated with directors, lighting designers, and other dancers, all of them persons who are trained in the theatrical performing arts. But this project with Tom, who did not have a theatrical background, was really the most exciting presentation I've ever worked on. It was a blessed project, and I hope it will happen again.